Hello, all you fine, beautiful people. This is Wayne, the musical hermit here, and today I'm going to be doing a tier ranking for the Uriah Heep discography. I know it's been a while since my last video. Internet issues plagued me over the last month and a bit, and it's just really finally starting to get to the point where I can actually do this. So I thought instead of some of the stuff I had planned prior to this happening, I thought, you know what? I'm going to come back with a bang. And what bigger bang can I come back with than ranking the discography, what I'd say, of my second all time favorite band, Uriah Heep? I've already done the Pink Floyd one. So let's dig into the Uriah Heep discography. Now, this is going to be fun, guys. This is really going to be fun. You got, I believe at this point, 24, 25 albums to get through. And I have to say, before I get into this, they've had their dips and all this. And also, if you're checking out the stream and you're new to it, just comment down below. I'll read all your comments at the end and get into it. Let's just get right into the music, the greatness that is Uriah Heep. So let's pull up the tier maker here and let's check this out. So to anyone new to this, when I do these, it's top category is masterpiece. Underneath that, you got almost perfect. It's almost a masterpiece. Underneath that is I like most of it. Below that is average, where I might like half the album. Underneath that is I like a couple songs. That's kind of your below average category. And then underneath that is would not recommend. And as much as I love Uriah Heep, I think there is a couple albums that end up in here. But that's my own personal. That's pretty much my own personal choice. If you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Really helps the channel out. Share it. But let's get into this. Let's start off with the first album, which is Very Heavy, Very Humble from 1970. This one's the cover with David Byron with spider webs all over his face, and yeah, great record. Gypsy is the start off to this album. Dream Mare, I know, is on it. Come Away Melinda's on it. It's actually a pretty, I think it's a pretty good record. Is it masterpiece? No. Almost perfect? I don't think so. But I'll put the first album in the like most of it category. To any of you guys watching, I might just put these in here. I wouldn't say get too offended if one's in here and it's above this and you don't think so. This is just right now kind of just going through this from memory. I haven't listened to these albums in a while, but I know some of these, my opinions have changed over time. So let's get back into this. Salisbury, the second album. I think it's a step up from the debut. Has a great title track. Lady in Black was a hit off of this. Park, Time to Live, High Priestess. Ooh, where to put Salisbury? Because this is a fantastic record. This was a Uriah Heep with Salisbury, the title track, working with an orchestra. Some really, really great moments on this record. Oh, it is that thing. Where to put it? Where to put it? Do I put it in the masterpiece category? This is one of the few albums where a band worked with an orchestra, and I think it really, really worked well. I'd put this on par with Atom Heart Mother for great sidelong epics. Or at least I believe it is a sidelong epic. I might be wrong about that. Heck with it. I'm going to put it in masterpiece. I love that record. Where do I put it? I might change this at the end. Next up, Look at Yourself, Uriah Heep, man. This album, to me, I know I might be in the minority in here. I think this is the first true progressive metal album ever made. This album is so heavy. Has such a heavy feel to it. It's one of the first albums that I really look at that blended prog and what later would be heavy metal together. This is the last one with Paul Newton on bass before Gary Thane joined the band. Great track listing, a title track Look Yourself, I Want to Be Free, July Morning, uh, Tears in My Eyes, Shadow of Grief, What Should Be Done, Love Machine. I think this thing's a masterpiece. That's going up there. Uh, you know what? I am going to drop Salisbury down to almost perfect. I think that's probably where I think it rightfully belongs. It's better than the debut, but man, it's really hard with this one here. Oh, what's next? Demons and Wizards, probably the album everyone's familiar with Uriah Heep for. I could put this on and I'll listen to the whole thing all the way through. This is an absolute masterpiece. Starting off with The Wizard, Poet's Justice, Traveler in Time, Easy Livin', Circle of Hands, Rainbow Demon, All My Life, Paradise the Spell. Just some absolutely fantastic, fantastic music by Uriah Heep. Up next, we got The Magician's Birthday. Yeah, that one for me is another masterpiece. I love that record. Starts off with Sunrise, Sweet Lorraine, I believe's on it, Tales, the absolute epic The Magician's Birthday, the title track, absolutely mind blowing. And to think that album was only released or recorded in like 2 weeks. Imagine if they would have taken their time to work out the rest of that record, man. Like we could be talking about that album being like one of the greatest of all time. It's coming off of Demons and Wizards, Roger Dean artwork on it. Absolutely fantastic. Next up, Sweet Freedom. Where to put Sweet Freedom? I'll put Sweet Freedom in the almost perfect category. There's a little bit of filler on this record that I don't mind, but it is filler. Stealin's on this record, which is absolutely gorgeous song. Absolutely love it. Gary Thane's bass, that driving bass tone of Gary Thane is amazing. David Byron vocally is on. And it's just a kick-ass song. One of those songs, just put it on and listen to it. It is absolutely fantastic. It's a great, great song. Oh, let's see. And then you get the title track, Sweet Freedom. I love that vocal line where it's like, sweet, sweet freedom. Just, oh man, the vocal harmonies on this are great. This is really from Salisbury to Sweet Freedom is Uriah Heep firing on all cylinders. Just a great band. I believe Dreamers also on this record is the opening track. Like the amount of this album that I've listened to from the debut to this album, I've probably listened to almost as much as I've listened to Pink Floyd albums. Just a great run. Next up, Wonderworld. Oh man, this one's gonna be very, very, very interesting on where do I put Wonderworld? Ooh. I really do like Suicidal Man from this album. My favorite song from this album, might shock a lot of people, is The Easy Road. Shadows in the Wind isn't bad. It's just a really hard album to really. Dreams isn't terrible. Where to put this up? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'd have to say it's about an average album for me. This is probably the weakest up to this point. Around this time, I think Gary Thane's last album with the band. I know there was addiction problems, and yeah, it's just a shame that this is the album Gary Thane went out on. Because if he would have went out on this one, it would have been a great run. Wonder World was just something just felt off about that whole record, and yeah, that's kind of where I'd put it in about the average category. Next album is Return to Fantasy. Ooh. I do like a lot of this album. Return to Fantasy is a good song, the title track opener. Shady Lady, Devil's Daughter, Beautiful Dream, Prima Donna, Year and a Day I like. I have to say it is a step up. I'll put that in the like most of it kind of category. Really, really good record. I think the first half is strong, parts of the second half are strong, but it's not into that almost perfect tier or the masterpiece. I think it is. I've come around on this album probably more than any other album in Uriah Heep's entire discography. And it's kind of a shame because like they've had some really darn good records, and this one is just one that's always kind of rose up for me. Wonderworld, not so much, but is what it is. Next album, High and Mighty. Ooh. The last album with David Byron before like his dealing with substance abuse. I think there are some absolutely great, absolutely fantastic songs on this album. Ooh, where to put it? Where to put this album? Hmm. Gonna put this one. I'll put it in with like most of it. I absolutely love the song Weep in Silence. That is one of my all-time favorite Uriah Heep songs. Absolutely love it. It's one of my songs I wake up to every morning. Has a great slide, has some great Ken Hensley and Mick Box playing on it. I would definitely throw High and Mighty up there as probably an album. I know some people have said they don't quite like it. I like most of it. This era of Heap, the whole David Byron era, I think is actually really, really strong. And it really works. The next album, Firefly. Ooh. John Lawton, a Lucifer's Friend, comes into the band. Uh, it's kind of an interesting time in Uriah Heep after David Byron. I don't know if, and I could just be completely wrong, I don't know if John Lawton was the perfect fit to replace David Byron. Because to me, they always felt like two completely different singers, where John Lawton's more blues kind of based, with Lucifer's Friend, kind of that Zeppelin-y, Black Sabbath hybrid kind of thing. But there are some great songs. I love The Hanging Tree. The opening song off this record is fantastic. Wise Man's really good. You get Lee Kerslake's with Who Needs Me, which is kind of a weird song. Sympathy's good. Firefly's good. Where to put this record? I would definitely put it, I think, right about like most of it. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna say I'll put it in like most of it. It's a really good record. Now on to Innocent Victim. It's astounding when you start looking at this. These two albums came out the same year. These two albums came out the same year. This album and Innocent Victim came out the same year. So it's really interesting to look at uh, Innocent Victim. I know it has the hit Free Me, which was a hit for them in South Africa on it. But there's some good stuff. Flying High, Free and Easy, Roller. I really love the song Illusion off of this. Cheat and Lie, The Dance. Some Heat fans might call me sacrilegious, but I think this is an almost perfect record. I remember listening to it, reviewing it, and always thinking very highly of this record. Album cover is kind of what's going on here, but I really do like this. This to me was the end of the peak Uriah Heep era. And I know a lot of people might not agree with me on that. Now we get into the next album, and oh boy, I know there's people that absolutely love Innocent Victim or love Fallen Angel. Cool cover. I just, I don't know. There's something that feels off about this record, and it's something that I think really showed up to me right around Firefly, Innocent Victim. Is by this point, I think, and I've seen documentaries with the band, I think what the band needed was a new voice. And it's not in the band. I think they needed a new voice in the production truck telling them, you guys gotta change it up a little bit. Because I think they held on a little bit too long. And their sound didn't quite evolve, I think, into perfect 80s Heap. I know some people might not agree with me on that, and that's fine. Absolutely love parts of the Heap, but this is really, to me, where the downfall started. And Fallen Angel, oh man. Oh, where do I put this album? I remember exactly what's on this. Woman of the Night wasn't bad. Uh, Come Back to Me, not terrible. But I still would not recommend this album. This to me is probably in my bottom. Oh, but can I put it in the do not recommend? Oh man, this is really, really hard. Yeah, I have to stick to my guns. I gotta put it down there. I would not recommend this album. This is really the first time I listened to Uriah Heep and felt bored throughout the whole record. There wasn't really anything, to me at least, that kind of changed my opinion on it. Like, it's probably for me the weakest of the Dave, like, of the Heap 70s material. It is the weakest album for me. I don't go back and listen to it very often, and when I do, I remember why I don't listen to it. I know it's probably, to a lot of Heat fans, very sacrilegious to put Fallen Angel down there. I'll admit, I think it was a cool cover. I don't think the material fit the album, the cover at all. And I quite honestly think this is where I really noticed they needed Jerry Braun out of that control room, and they needed somebody else, was this record. Next up, you get Conquest. Oh, where to put this record? Ooh. This is really where you're splitting hairs on level of Crap, this is the last Ken Hensley album he'd ever do with Uriah Heep, studio-wise. After this, it's the Mick Box era. I don't believe this album was released in the United States at all. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention around Firefly. High and Mighty had John Wetton on bass with Return to Fantasy as well as John Wetton. Trevor Bolder takes over at Firefly, Innocent Victim, Fallen Angel. By the time Fallen Angel's over, that whole thing goes to pass. John Lawton's out. Bringing John Sloman. It just didn't work. I seen a documentary where Ken said he wanted Pete Goldby. The guys wanted somebody else, probably more different singer from what I understand. And I will say there is some stuff on here I really like. Carry On, I really like off this Fools. I think the album has moments and songs here and there. Ooh, but I'm going to put this here. I don't think this album is as bad as people come out of the woodwork to say, oh, it's absolutely horrible. I think John Sloman, I think the reason why is because I think John Sloman was not the perfect fit for Uriah Heep. That is my 100% reasoning behind that is I don't think John Sloman was the right person to be in the band at the time. Ooh. And I think it came out later that even the band realized that. Next up, we get Abominog, which is kind of Ken Hensley's gone, Pete Goldby now in. You get, I want to say Bob Daisley. And I believe Lee Kerslake is back for this after Ozzy Osbourne fired both of them. They come back, they do Abominog. Oh, man. This is a really, really hard album for me to think about and really kind of rate, if that makes sense. Because I think there's always a John Sinclair is the keyboard player on this. Like, this album is so hard for me to rate. Mainly because a lot of the songs on this album aren't written by Uriah Heep. Too Scared to Run's written by them. Chasing Shadows. Yeah. Hot Persuasion. Sell Your Soul. Think It Over. Those are Heep. So I think to me at least, I like the record. I just think there's always a cap on how much I like it. It's very much AOR. It goes into that 80s sound. And I don't hate it. I'll definitely put Abominog. I like it as an album more than Wonderworld. So I think it's going to go there for me. And this was the first one where they got a fresh voice in there. Ashley Howe produced this record, and I think it really, really works well for me. Next album on the list, Head First. Where to put this record? I'm going to admit it. I think they realized, okay, maybe we can get away with the covers thing. Because it was really a smart idea. What Mick Box virtually did was reboot the band, but take an old trope they used to do back in the day where you would do covers on albums back in the 60s and put them on your albums. And Uriah Heep had done covers before. Come Away Melinda was a cover of a Harry Belafonte song. So I can see why they would try this. The Other Side of Midnight's not a bad song. Sweet Talk isn't terrible. Roll Overture, Weekend Warriors, Streets of the Heart, Rolling Back. But like I said, there's always a cap on these, and quite honestly, I don't like Head First as much as I like Abominog. And I wonder the only reason why I like Abominog is because I don't like these two very much, and that's what preceded it. So I don't know if it's Abominog gets overrated or if it's just because those two albums are that bad that it kind of bumps that up just into liking most of it because it's not that. On to the next album. Oh, Jesus. Equator. I don't even have to look at anything. I know exactly. This is the last Pete Golby album. Goes right down there. Would not recommend Equator. I know there's people out there that absolutely love Equator. You're not looking at one of them. I am not a huge Equator fan from Uriah Heep. And there's a telling Uriah Heep, and I'll always say this, and people who understand it. Whenever Uriah Heep starts producing their own records, it's usually a bad sign because there's stuff in there. Like I remember Equator, there's moments where it's like you're waiting for it to get good. And I want to say the last song on the album, I got to look up what song this is. Yes, Night of the Wolf. The best song on the album is the last song on the album. So you have to trudge through Rockorama, Bad Blood, Lost One Love, Angel, Holding On, Party Time, Poor Little Rich Girl, School Burn, and Heartache City to get to Night of the Wolf, which has these great keyboard parts to it. But I always felt this album was missing something. Like, it's like it was getting interested and then it would go back to something. And I'm like, I don't want to hear this. And it's an album that has always bored me whenever I go through a Heap listening. I try my damnedest to get through this as quick as possible. And there's times I skip a majority of this album, just hear the last song and don't listen to the rest. On to the next album. The first album with Bernie Shaw, Phil Lanzon, which would be known as the real Uriah Heep, or at least the modern Uriah Heep. This is where it starts, 89 with Raging Silence. There is some good stuff on this album. Hold Up Your Head, which is an Argent cover, so they go back to doing one cover. But the great thing is the covers virtually end. Now, one of the things that happened is a lot of songs got repurposed from other singers. Like, I remember you'd have like John Sloman, Pete Golby singing Sloman songs, Sloman singing songs without were meant for John Lawton, and it very much proved through this era. It was very much a era of just trying to survive, it feels like, the 80s. And Uriah Heep was still a very, I believe at this point, still a decent name. Even if they are at this point probably a legacy band. But Blood Red Roses wasn't bad. Voice of My TV, not bad. Yeah, you get a couple more covers. I'm going to put this one, I think it is average. And I think because this one's so bad at times, I've almost overrated this one. Same with this. Like, these albums are so bad. But yeah, I think Bernie Shaw was the guy to really steady the ship for Uriah Heep and kind of take the mantle. Their singer that's been around the longest, other than David Byron, the guy that really, I think when most Heat fans think Uriah Heep, they think of Bernie Shaw or David Byron. Man, but Raging Silence, I think it was a shot of adrenaline they needed. But would that adrenaline last? Now on to Different World. Yeah, this is another album where Uriah Heep produced themselves. Was not released in America, and as I said in a video I did once, I'll repeat it here. There is not a studio in America that would have touched this album in 1991 with a 10-inch pole. I believe Trevor Bolder produced this. And I really feel bad because I love Trevor Bolder. I think he's a phenomenal bass player. But when you get into this era of Heep, it is so, you can tell only one album gets above average for me out of this era. It's really a weak era. It starts in 1978. And by this point, 91, like it's been about 13 years. And it came out early 91, so it was before grunge. Oh man, this was really bad. I know there's people out here that'll probably come back and say they love it. Blood on the Stone, Which Way the Wind Blows, All God's Children. There's parts of these songs that feels like okay. They're interesting, they're intriguing me, but they'll go back to these old tropes. And it's something that I noticed on Fallen Angel, Equator, and Different World all have the same problem. Once they start singing, they repeat, and it goes back to an old church saying from back in the day. It's called 7-11, like the same 7 lines repeated 11 times or something like that. And that's the problem with these albums. The music's not able to breathe. It's oversung. There's too much. And it's funny going back and listening to it. That's how I feel listening to the whole thing. It's feels overdone, over just too much. And I think some of these songs could have been shortened for how much there was. There wasn't enough material there, which is kind of sad because looking at the album, it doesn't look like the album's very long to begin with. I wonder if it was put up there just to kind of fill it out, the rest of it. But yeah, by this point, it's like, damn. I think Uriah Heep was in hard problems here a lot because this one's 80, that's 82. I want to say Headfirst was their last on Bronze Records because after that Bronze Record folded, then Equator got put on, I think, a subsidiary of something. I want to say almost Capitol or one of them. Then you get to these 2 albums, which I believe is another label. Yeah, by this point, it's like there's such in flux where to go. And I think for Uriah Heep, the best thing that happened for Uriah Heep was kind of grunge happened and the great prog resurgence kind of happened because this starts kind of what I would say the second really big period of Uriah Heep starts with Sea of Light. And I'll say it, I think this album is almost perfect. It's a great record. Sea of Light coming off that. I don't know if I'm overrating this because this is so bad. Like, it's one of those things where I'm just sitting back, looking at it, and thinking to myself, Jesus, like, they took 4 years off to make Sea of Light. Once again, a Roger Dean artwork. Because, yeah, that, like I said, that's 80. That's 82. That's 83 or 4, I believe. That's 85. That's 89. So, yeah, 4 years, 2 years then to make that. Another 4 years to make Sea of Light. Really interesting. I think this is a great record. I think this is where Uriah Heep started to blend their prog roots with also their 80 pop sensibilities. kind of trying to do, I think, what Yes has really struggled to do. But I think Heap has found a formula that works going forward. But there are some great songs: Against All Odds, Time of Revelation, Mistress of All Time, Universal Wheels, Spirit of Freedom, Logical Progression, Love and Silence, World in the Distance, Fire of Hell, Your Only Son, Dream On. Just some great songs off here. Yeah, I would definitely say that that album is almost perfect. On to the next one, Sonic Origami, 97, so 2 years after that. I'm going to put it in average. Or what I. Oh, what's on this record? That's one thing that's really going to have to. How often do I go back and listen? I have to say, I like a couple songs off of here. I'll say that. I'm going to kind of change my mind about this one. I was almost thinking of putting average. Whew, how much of this record do I listen to? Okay, I was wrong. 98, I believe it is. Between Two Worlds, I like. Heartless Land, I like. Across the Miles, I think is pretty good. Golden Palace. Yeah, I only like a couple songs off this album. There's not much here that I look at and say, how much of this would I go back and listen to? I think it's very much like a couple songs off of this album. And then starts what I would call the Great Uriah Heep, uh, 10 years off. In between labels, they sort of noticed what was going on. So they took a long time to come out with their next album, the longest break in their entire career. And where would I put Wake the Sleeper? Masterpiece. I love this record. Uh, Title track, Wake the Sleeper, uh, Overlord, Tears of the World, Light of a Thousand Stars, Heaven's Rain, Book of Lies, What Kind of God, Ghost of the Ocean, Angels Walk With You, Shadow, and War Child. There isn't a weak song on this album. I love this. Absolutely fantastic. Uh, Great way to come back for Uriah Heep. For me, this is my first, other than Demons and Wizards, this was the second Uriah Heep album I ever heard. I absolutely love this album. This is where I think Uriah Heep perfectly melded. Where I think they started with Sea of Light, Sonic Origami kind of was a misstep, but Wake the Sleeper perfectly melded their 80s and prog roots together. Where you could have kind of like that AOR kind of idea. And Wake the Sleeper virtually is an instrumental, which is something you really rarely see in Uriah Heep as a full-blown instrumental. Angels Walk With You is heavy, dripping of Phil Lanzon's keys on it. I love that song. I always love that Hammond organ kind of sound, and they just dialed it in here. Into the Wild, 2011. I like this record. Oh, where did I put this? Damn. Nail on the Head's a good opening. I think it's an average album. I really do. I hate to say it. It's one of those where I definitely could see myself coming back in a few years listening to it. I just think it doesn't quite have the majesty of Wake the Sleeper. I think it is a step down. And I definitely wouldn't listen to it over these ones. Only album I might listen to Abominog a little bit over this. Yeah, that's that's where I'm definitely gonna put that. Ooh, on to the next album on the list, which is Outsider. This is, or I forgot to mention with Into the Wild, that was the last album they had with Trevor Bolder on bass. He passed away after the release of this album. In between Outsider, Nail or The Law is a song I've seen them play live. That's not bad. 1 minute's a song I've seen them play live. It's not terrible. But once again, I think it's just kind of an average album. Yeah, that's definitely where I'll put that one. Now we're on to 4 years after that, 2018's Living the Dream. For me, masterpiece. I will definitely say Living the Dream is the heaviest album they did since Look at Yourself. That album is so heavy, so drenched in organ. Oh man, like this is Uriah Heep at their peak. This was done through, I believe, a crowdfunding campaign. Grazed by Heaven is a great opening track. Living the Dream as well. Take Away My Soul, Knocking at My Door. Rocks in the Road, Water's Flowing. It's All Been Said. Goodbye to Innocence, Falling Under Your Spell. Dreams of Yesteryear. Every song on this album is perfect. This is the first Uriah Heep album I bought brand new, or got brand new. Got it for Christmas. Listened to it. I love this thing. This thing is heavy. It's ballsy. Mick on this album sounds great. And yeah, I seen them just before they were talking about this album at the concert. I seen them, I want to say back in 2017 or 20, I think 2018 is when I seen them. 20 somewhere in there. Absolutely fantastic concert. Start to finish, loved it. Just absolutely astounding. This band, to me, one of my all-time favorites. Next up, Chaos and Color. Gonna say it's almost perfect. And I know there's some that might not agree with me on that. Some people have come out and said it's one of their favorite Heap albums. The only thing that I think holds this back from this is I think on Living the Dream, they reined Bernie in a little bit. And on this album, I think there's a couple times where he's singing where I'm like, I wish he wouldn't. It kind of feels, it kind of gets back into what I said about these albums. Definitely would be where it feels very oversung. But yeah, this whole era of Heap, wow, it's amazing. I didn't think it would be that this would be a square. Wow. Would I definitely keep it like that? Now, for those of you who might have missed the beginning, I definitely am not putting these in the order. I think I might come back later and rank every album, but at least for me, this is kind of the tier listing. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, masterpiece tier. Look at Yourself. Demons and Wizards, Magician's Birthday, Wake the Sleeper, Live in the Dream, Almost Perfect tier, Salisbury, Sweet Freedom, Innocent Victim, See a Light, Chaos and Color. Liked most of it. Very heavy, very humble. Return to Fantasy, High and Mighty, Firefly, Abominog, Average is Wonderworld. Head First, Raging Silence, Into the Wild, Outsider. Liked a couple songs, Conquest, Sonic Origami. Would not recommend Fallen Angel, Equator, or Different World. So that is my tier list. I want to know what you guys think of that tier list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Only thing I ask, just be civil in the comments. But yeah, that's where that's a pretty good list there. Almost 5. So there's 25 albums. Pretty much that. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So anyway, once again, have to say thank you guys for watching. This has been quite a long video. Hope you guys like it. Be sure to hit the like button, smash the subscribe button, click the little bell down below so don't miss anything. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.